Hello there and welcome to the One Lonely Owl YouTube channel. This is the One Lonely Owl podcast and my name is Terry. I will be your host for today and every day if you choose to come back. Today's episode is going to be a short one. I will just say that I don't have a ton of content today, but there's a couple of things that I did want to address, so that's why we are here and recording, even though I am recording a few days late, and this will be going up a little bit late. I haven't said this yet, but this podcast is primarily about knitting, although it will dabble into other crafting adventures, past, present, and future. I talk a little bit about things that I have done, things that I plan to do, as well as obviously the things that I'm currently working on. I am located in central Alberta, Canada, and I am from Newfoundland, Canada. So I do have a smattering of Newfoundlandese. Newfoundlandese is a term used to describe Newfoundland language. So you will see a few things in here or there that you may not understand, and I will try to describe those for you. If you are new here, I want to say thank you so much for joining me. If you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. And with that, I will not forget to say, hi, Mom. If you do hear a crying puppy, he is locked outside. As you saw in the last episode, if you watched it, he can be a bit of a handful. So he is sitting outside the front door, or the door to my office, which is right there. And he's not happy about it, but that's too bad. I'm not letting him in this time. All right, with that, we're just going to dive right in. As always, my show notes are sitting right here, and I will be referring to those as I go through the episode. The first thing that I wanted to address is the short and sweetness of this episode. It will be short, it will be concise, and it's not a ton of content, but there's a couple of things, like I said, that I wanted to address before I didn't want to wait another 2 weeks and have you guys wondering where I was. The other thing I wanted to address, there was an elephant in the room a few weeks back where you saw that I had cut my hair. I'd had long hair probably down to about here for quite some time. And I mean, for quite some time, I'd had that hair cut since grade 8. So the early 90s. I now have lost most of my hair. So if you're new here, I am currently going through chemo treatment for cervical cancer. If you are new here and you want to go back and listen to the whole story, it's way back in a few episodes ago. Please feel free to go back and watch the previous episodes to see the whole story. But I am currently undergoing chemo treatment. I have had 2 of 3 treatments, so I've got 1 more left to go. But because of that, I have no hair and sometimes a pretty cold head, although today I'm not cold, so I'm not wearing any knitted garments on my head today. The other thing that I wanted to talk about early off in the introduction is we've hit 113 subscribers. That, I can't even describe to you how fun that is for me. I'm not doing this for any reason. Like, I don't know if you monetize channels and all this kind of stuff. I don't exactly get how that works, and I quite honestly don't really care, but just knowing that there are 113 people out there that are watching what I'm doing and that enjoy some of this conversation and sit with me, and maybe while I'm sitting here, you're sitting there and you're knitting on a project, or maybe I've inspired you to pick up knitting again after years of not doing so, or who knows, whatever the situation might be. It just brings me joy to know that you are finding some joy in this, and I hope you are. If you're not, obviously, feel free to tune out. You don't have to watch if it's not enjoyable for you. So yeah, 113 subscribers. I think that's pretty neat. That's pretty cool. I'm excited about that. I typically will have a segment right now called Mugup. Mugup is where I talk about what it is that I'm drinking. A Mugup in Newfoundland, or a boil up, is when you go into the woods and you light a fire and you boil something. Tea, coffee, hot chocolate, and you have a nice hot drink out in the woods, typically in the winter. Now, I don't have anything today. I don't even have a glass of water with me today because I knew that this was going to be a really quick episode. So generally Mugup would have something in it. Generally, of late, it has been a glass of water or some sort of tumbler full of water. Just because my chemo treatments have really impacted my taste buds, so I don't really particularly like hot drinks at the moment. So yeah, I am not drinking anything today, but you can rest assured, anyone out there that's wondering about my health and well-being, I am drinking tons of water. I just didn't bring one with me today because I knew that this episode was going to be pretty short. The next segment I'm also going to skip over. So next segment is called La. La is short in Newfoundland for look, as in look at what she's wearing. I am wearing a knitted garment today. I will not tell you what it is until we get to finished objects because it is also a finished object. I am super proud of it. It is so cozy. It's nice and comfy and cozy, and I'm really enjoying it. But I am not wearing any other knitted garments that are older than, say, 2 weeks old. So I won't talk about anything in the La segment either. So I knew this was going to be a short and sweet episode. Apologies if you came here for a ton of content today. You won't be getting much. So the next segment is what are you at? What are you at in Newfoundland is a short phrase to basically describe what it is that you're doing. So somebody will ask, what are you at? What are you at means, what are you doing? Where are you going? It's a bit of a catch-all phrase. So I did bring, because it's the only thing I've been working on, I did bring my my cancer sock, I've been calling it, my chemo sock. This is a vanilla sock made by me. I just do a 16 stitch Turkish cast on. I increase to 72 stitches on 2mm needles. I knit up until I run out. If it's a self-striping yarn, I usually count how many stripes I have, and then I divide them by 2. Like, I know how many stripes I have. I divide it over 2 socks, and then when I'm done the stripes, I'm done the stripes. I am using a contrast color for the heels, toes, and cuffs. I am just knitting a vanilla sock. It's my typical vanilla sock recipe. Again, if you're new here, you wouldn't have known what I just described, but I have talked about this in previous episodes as well. So this is living in my So Shannon National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation sock, or bucket bag, not bucket bag, wireframe bag, the doctor style wireframe that opens and stays open. This was part of the Canadian Countdown to Christmas calendar in 2023. So this was what all of the skeins of yarn were held in. I'm going to hold it up a little closer so you can see how cute and adorable it is. So that is the bag by So Shannon. That's where these socks are living. I have a half-finished object. I don't know if I've shown this one before, but this is what the finished sock will look like. Obviously, this one doesn't have a heel. Oh, and it was when I had hair, so there was hair all over this one. So this is what the self-striping knits up like. I will do an afterthought heel. I did not use, I believe it was a chocolate mini that came with this self-striping skein. I did not use that chocolate. I wanted something that matched one of the colors, and I have a ridiculous collection of Polka Dot Creek, so I ended up finding this gray colorway that went with one of the gray. You can see the gray in the self-striping sock matches the toe. So I chose to do that. This one is the finished one. Again, just needs the heel, which I usually do after I have both socks done. And this is the progress. Now, I will be honest, I wasn't showing this sock because it was in my chemo bag, and I wasn't really keeping the same progress like I normally would. Like, I'd move my progress keeper and then I'd hold it there until I showed you guys the progress I was making. So I apologize because I don't think I did that with these. And there is a progress keeper in here which is super adorable, but I don't think this is not the progress that I made since I've shown this to you last. So I apologize for that. So this is sock number 2. Same heels, toes, and cuffs, or will have the same heels, toes, and cuffs with the contrasting color. And the adorable, this one was also a progress keeper that came from one of the calendars that I had last year, an advent calendar from Polka Dot Creek and Hissy Knit. It was a collaborative effort from Polka Dot Creek and Hissy Knit. So this is how much I have left of my self-striping. I don't have a lot left to do, and like I said, then I will finish up with the gray that I have to do the cuff on the other one and the 2 heels on both socks. So that is what I've been working on. I will be honest. I have not had a ton of knitting mojo of late. So I finished the sweater that I'm currently wearing, which I'll talk about in a minute. And I also did a fair bit of, not a fair bit, but any work that I did on that sock that I just showed you. And I will be fairly honest with you, I have not really had a ton of knitting mojo. So my last chemo treatment was near the beginning of February, and it really knocked the socks off me. So I was in bed a lot, not feeling very well, horizontal. If I got up out of bed, I was moving to the couch, and I didn't really have a lot of, another term in Newfoundland that we would use is gumption. I don't know if that's a real word or if it's a made up term. It basically means you don't have enough like energy, or the way we would probably describe it as mojo. I just didn't have enough mojo to do any knitting. So I haven't done a ton. And yeah, once I got this sweater off the needles, I sort of went downhill after that. But anyway, I'm super proud of the sock. I'm going to have my final chemo treatment at the beginning of March. So I'm going to, I'm going to end up doing the rest of that sock, I'm guessing, and maybe even cutting in for both heels. So I need to get another sock on the needle. So what I might actually do is ask for some opinions on some of the sock yarns that I have. Like I've said, I have a unbelievable amount of Polka Dot Creek yarn that I could pick from. I've got some commercial yarn that I can pick from, so I might pick out some and see what your thoughts are. Do a poll maybe and see who has an opinion on what sock yarn I might knit with next, because I always have a sock on the needles just because they're easy and fun and I don't have to think too much. All right, so that was Whatat. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for is the Yes By. Yes By is the segment where we talk about things that I have finished. So Yes By, again, the elephant in the room is this sweater that I have been wearing since the beginning of the episode. I have started and finished the Harvest Cardigan by Tin Can Knits. It is knit with Cascade Ecological wool, and I am in love with it. It is so soft and yummy. I'm really, really proud of it. There's only 2 mistakes, which I won't show you, because if you can't see them, that's great. But I know you all know how it feels when I can see the mistakes. But I am absolutely loving it. It is lovely and cozy, and it stays open. So I don't generally put, if it calls for a button on a cardigan, I will sometimes just put them on there for show, but I don't generally close my cardigans, so I won't be putting any buttonholes, or I obviously hadn't put any buttonholes in this one, and I don't intend on closing it. I do have a really cute shawl pin, so if I did ever decide that I wanted to have it closed, then I would be able to do that with a shawl pin, but like I said, I generally don't close my cardigans. With all the cancer things that have been going on and all that sort of stuff, I ended up with going into early menopause, so I'm warm most of the time, even without any hair. Sometimes I do get cold, but a lot of the time I am warm. The only time I'm ever really, really cold is if I'm outside for very long without a hat on. But yeah, I don't generally close my cardigan, so this is absolutely perfect. I love how it fits. It blocked beautifully. If you are new to knitting, or if you are not new to knitting and you don't block your items, I will say that for the longest time I heard so many people raving and ranting about blocking their knits and not really getting what the hype was about. I always block my knits, but if they're made of wool, if they're made of acrylic, I don't generally, but I never did get why you'd want to block your knits and like what the big deal was. And I consistently did it, but more than that, instead of just blocking it, I would actually pay attention to beginning before I blocked it and then after I blocked it. And maybe one of these days I'll actually take some before and after photos and I'll post them. But the the difference it makes in a garment, especially, it just blooms, and it makes the stitches sit nicer, and it, you know, it stretches it out. I think it was the Crayabea knitter who had an Instagram reel maybe, and there was a picture of her wearing an unblocked garment, and then she blocked it sort of partway through finishing it, had one more sleeve left to do, and she had blocked it and was wearing it, and the difference it made on her body was out of this world. So yeah, if you don't do it, you must block your knits. It is like the #1 trick to getting your knits to fit properly. And if you do block your knits, you already know what I'm talking about. So anyway, this blocked out absolutely beautifully. I will stand up so that you can see it. Hopefully you can see most of it when I stand. So here's the front. The sleeves fit exactly how I would like them to. I don't know why I feel like I need to sing to show you this. And then the back, which you can't really see all of, but yeah, really, really happy with this one. Whoops, 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 whoops. Sorry about that. Don't know what happened there. So yeah, the Harvest Cardigan by Tin Can Knits, knit with Cascade Ecological Wool, and loving it. Absolutely loving it. So for those of you that were following along, my girlfriend and I were doing a harvest knit along. I've finished mine. She's almost finished hers. So maybe if, Jen, I know you don't watch video podcasts, but if you are watching, let me know when you get yours done, or send me a photo, and then I can pop it in maybe my next episode. All right, the next segment is called Twacking. Twacking is where I go shopping. So in Newfoundland, twacking means you are wandering around sort of window shopping with no intention to buy anything. I have, for the first time, not gotten anything. I haven't purchased anything. Well, that's not true. I bought groceries. I went to a couple of big box stores and did some grocery shopping, but I haven't bought anything knitting related. I have made a pact with myself that I wasn't going to buy anything this year, and so far so good. It is, what, halfway through February? Almost all the way through February, and I have not bought anything. So I'm super proud of myself for that. So that's another short and sweet segment where I don't have anything to talk about. The next segment is called Now to Once. Now to Once is typically where I talk about what I want to knit and the things that have got me excited in my future knitting plans. You've already heard me today talk a little bit about how I don't really have a ton of knitting mojo. I am not really excited about knitting right now for some reason. And although I do intend to continue to knit on the socks that I've been knitting on, even my husband said to me last night, he said, "You haven't really been knitting a bunch." And he's right, I haven't. Yeah, I don't have a real big plan. Now, having said that, the flax light is still on the needles, and it's still sitting over there in its bag, waiting to be knit on and languishing, waiting for me to pick it up again. And I will, and it's the next thing that I will pick up. It's just I can't guarantee when that will be, because I'm not 100% sure when my knitting mojo is going to come back. I might, in the meantime, you know, maybe I will cast on another sock just to have them on the needles, because socks are really easy to get going and really easy for me to knit without thinking too much. Although all I have left on the Flaxlight are sleeves, which I just hate doing decreases. I hate having to count how many rows I'm at to see where the decreases are, etc. So I haven't decided what I'm going to do next, but the Flaxlight is next on the list. Another pair of socks is going to be cast on. And then maybe I'll go back and I'll look at some of my previous notes and see some of the things. Like, I'd love to knit a skirt. I know I've talked about that a lot. I'd love to knit a skirt. Maybe that is something that I can get my mojo back, because I will be going into spring where, you know, end of February, the birds are starting to come back. The geese are starting to come home. Yeah, so maybe I will finish my flax. Maybe I'll cast on a skirt. Who knows? We'll see. But I will keep you posted. I also didn't say Now to Once. Now to Once is the name of the segment, and that is what I'm going to get to next. So Now to Once means in a minute, basically. So what are you going to be working on in a little bit? What's your future plans? So now to once is the Newfoundlandese term for that. All right, the biggest segment that I have, because I haven't really had a ton of knitting mojo, I have been reading a lot. So this is the segment called Jigs and Reels. Jigs and Reels are where we talk about things that I have been listening to, watching, or reading. So listening to meaning audiobooks or music or what have you. Watching could be podcasts or television shows, and reading, obviously, whatever books I may be reading. So I have a fairly large list. I had been, and I usually have a Louise Penny book on the go, and The Nature of the Beast I had been reading a few episodes back now, and I had put it down to read a couple of other books. I picked it back up again, and I've only got maybe a chapter or two left, so I'm really enjoying that one. The Push. The Push is an audiobook that I am listening to. It's by Ashley O'Drain, I think is how you pronounce her last name. The Push is pretty dark, I will just say. I can't remember where I got the recommendation from, but it is a fairly dark read. I'm struggling with listening too much of it at any given time. So although I am enjoying it, I'm finding it to be pretty dark. So I'm sticking it out to see what happens in the end. One that I have finished is How to Stop Time by Matt Haig. I thoroughly enjoyed that book. I'm a big fan of Matt Haig. If you're new here, I have talked about The Midnight Library a lot. The Midnight Library is probably my favorite book of all time. It likely has a lot to do with where I am in my life and what I'm kind of going through, but The Midnight Library by Matt Haig is one of my favorites. So I had this book as part of a book club pick from my library. And it's called How to Stop Time by Matt Haig. It's, I don't know what you'd call it, if it would be considered a sci-fi or fantasy. Not really. I don't think it's fantasy. Basically, this man lives to be like 450 years old, and so it shares his life and how he has to move around so that he doesn't get recognized and noticed, and the fact that he doesn't age. So it's a really good read if that's something that you're into. If not, then you might want to bypass that one. The other book that I finished is called After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Again, if you're new here, I'm a big fan of Taylor Jenkins Reid. I love their books, and if you are interested in any of them, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, After I Do, the one about Fleetwood Mac. Oh, I can't remember the name of that one. But anyway, everything that I've read by Taylor Jenkins Reid, I enjoy. So if that is something that you are interested in or want to give it a shot, pick up any one of their books and you may be surprised. I really enjoy them. Something that I have been watching. So actually, I read a book for my book club. I can't remember the name of it. If I can find it, I'll put it across the bottom of the screen. But it was a book or a book series that the television show Will Trent is based on. So I watched the first season of Will Trent. My husband and I did. I believe it is on Prime. I can't remember where we found it, but again, Will Trent is a television show that we watched the first season of. The other show that's also based on a book is Three Pines. That is the series by Louise Penny. And if you're new here, you know that I'm a big fan of Louise Penny. I like things that I like, if you haven't noticed that. So I'll read the same author, I'll read the same types of books. I will sort of stick to things that I know and that I like. Louise Penny is one of those things that I love, so I would recommend reading any of her books and watching Three Pines. Again, Three Pines is on Prime. Sorry, I've got a bit of a woolly on my nose. Three Pines is on Prime, and I'd been sort of saving some of those episodes because I didn't want them to end. So I finished that season last night. And finally, something that I had been listening to. So on the day that it was the 12th of February, I believe, the day that no, it wasn't the day that I had chemo. It was 4 days later. Anyway, doesn't matter. I ended up going to a Nathaniel Rateliff and a City and Colour concert. The opening act was called Ruby Waters, who was also very good. My best friend and I decided months and months and months ago that we were going to go see this concert. So I bought the tickets and we went, and it was awesome, except that it was on my 4th day following chemo, which is when I'm usually the sickest. So it was really, really tough, but I went. We didn't actually end up getting to stay for City and Colour because I wasn't feeling so hot, so we left right after Nathaniel Rateliff. He's such a good entertainer. I hadn't realized how good he was from a live perspective, obviously, because I'd only ever watched him on YouTube, but I had an idea. He seems to just really love what he does, and man, did they ever put on a really great show. So again, if you're new here, give it a try. Nathaniel Rateliff and the Night Sweats. They're the band that I went specifically to see. But we also saw Ruby Waters, who was the opening act. And then, unfortunately, although I have seen City and Colour in the past, we had to leave before City and Colour came on because it was a late night. That is it. That's all I have for today's episode. I am going to be editing this hopefully today, but I will be putting it on YouTube as soon as I get it edited. I thank you so much for joining me and for being patient with me being late. Like I said, the mojo hasn't been there. I haven't been feeling the best, so I did what I could when I could, and I'm grateful that you are here with me to share that with me. I believe that's it. I'm just going to double check to see if I had anything else I wanted to say. I think that's it. So for now, keep living your best life and filling up your cup. I will see you in 2 weeks, hopefully. If all goes well, I will see you in 2 weeks. Until then, stay where you're to till I comes where you're at. Bye.